Guys, if there is a hand coming up out of the Laundrie's flower bed, and that hand is Brian's, I personally will ride naked through my hometown on a horse. I don't have a horse, but I'm sure someone will lend me a horse to do this. I'm that confident that there is no hand coming up from the flower bed. But this is the this is the latest theory, so we've got to discuss it. Let's do it. Hello everyone, my name is Michelle. I hope you're doing well. It's about 8 AM on Thursday and it's very dark in the woods. It's very overcast. Can't see through the trees. I think we're in for some rain later today, but it's very, very dark. So what you're seeing here, darkness, it really is that dark. It's not my camera. So yesterday, this video started circulating, and it's from the drone footage. Someone flew a drone over the Laundrie's backyard and saw them gardening. Now, I don't know who originally started this rumour that there's a hand coming up from the flower bed. I don't know where that came from, but this is a video, so let's discuss it. So if you look at it, Roberta is bending down, doing something in the flower bed. Now, if you slow the footage down and you zoom in, it becomes grainy, but right, guys, where are you seeing the hand? The thing is, Roberta is bending down. She's gardening, so she's must have some gardening tool in her hand, or it could simply be the shadow. This is like the wall is going to cast a shadow on Roberta bending down, but this is not a hand. And I don't care how many times people say yes, it is. And I was actually surprised when I posted a bit of a spoof in my Facebook group. I photoshopped a hand coming up from the flower bed, and overnight there's been a lot of comments on that post, and people like saying, where has it been confirmed that there's no hand and there really is a hand? And so I've got to address this, guys. Look, I'm all for theories, I'm all for speculations, I'm all for checking things out however unlikely they may seem. So I'm not blaming anybody for discussing this, and I'm being a bit flippant, but guys, come on, right? When you theorise, you've got to look at this critically, and you've got to consider all of the alternatives. The essence of investigation for me and theorising for me is the essence of scientific inquiry. I've talked about this previously in relation to the Summer Wells case. That if you form a hypothesis based on some evidence that you feel is there, to be truly investigative, you've also got to consider what it might not be. So instead of just jumping on this and saying, yes, definitely there is a hand, consider all of the alternatives to that. What might it be if it's not a hand? Practice some basics of scientific inquiry and some pure common sense. Because such grainy footage of someone bending down in a flower bed and supposedly a hand coming up, like Roberta's, like, I don't know, passing him something. How likely is that? And then think about how likely it is that it isn't that, and it's just a shadow or a gardening tool. And isn't that way more likely? The reason this is, you've got to exercise common sense here, is that this is a suburban house in Florida, in a flood zone, right? Carlton Reserve, the 25,000 acre reserve that Brian is supposedly in, and I'll come on to the Carlton Reserve in a few moments and I'll get serious with a real confirmation. The reason why 75% of that is swamp and it's underwater is because this whole region is a flood zone. That's why in these types of houses in Florida, they don't have basements, because it's a flood zone. So if you have a basement, a cellar, a bunker, a tunnel, it would flood. You'd have to have some pretty hefty insulation to stop it from flooding, and imagine the cost of building that. So if the Laundries already had an underground bunker, which is possible but highly improbable. Ah! Oh, fell in. Oh, caught on camera as well. Oh my God, I slipped on the mud. That's not good. That is not good. I'm fine. Just a bit muddy. If the Laundries had built this, what for, I don't know, whatever, threat of nuclear war or a storm bunker, they'd have had to spend a hefty amount of money on that. But if anybody can find me any proof that this house has a bunker, then I will honestly eat my hat. And if Brian is found underground in that flower bed, I will ride naked through my hometown. It's not going to be a pretty sight, and I'll get arrested, but I'm that confident. This is not a hand, and there is no underground bunker at the Laundrie's home. And if anybody thinks that they've built an underground bunker in the time Brian's been missing, well, that's even more unlikely. Again, it's a flood zone. So how have they been able to do that and insulate it against flooding? I mean, look, the UK is really wet, and most houses in the UK don't have basements. I'm sure there's a lot less houses that have basements in the UK than there is in the US. There are some houses that have basements, like houses that were built in Victorian times. Here's a little bit of history for you. Houses that were built in cities, like in built-up areas in Victorian times, the large houses had basements because that's where the servants lived, where the servants worked, and some of them slept. In other cities where you had kind of poorer housing, more like working class housing, in cities they'd build a small basement as a coal store, because houses were heated by coal. When I lived in Preston, which is a small city in the UK, the house I lived in had a small cellar, and it was only the size of like one room, and it was an old coal store. Like, it had a coal chute that the coal delivery, they'd just open the chute and they'd like pour the coal into the cellar, because there was no room in the city to have a coal store outside of the home. It's interesting, but the cost of building basements in the UK in just regular homes is extortionate, because it's so wet. It rains all the time, and the water table is generally high. So basements are very often not usable. Like the house I lived in, the basement, it wasn't usable, it was damp. I painted it black and painted the floor silver. It looked like a film set of a dungeon, because I just did that because it was funny. Dungeon Don would have loved it. But it wasn't usable. You couldn't even stand up straight in it. You know, it was literally a coal store. Like, I'm 5'6", and I couldn't stand up in it. I had to bend, stoop. So it wasn't usable. But there are many basements in the UK that are usable, but a lot of them are damp. And they have to be really, really well insulated because of the water table. So in Florida, it's probably even worse than it is in the UK, in that area. So I'm very, very confident that there is no underground bunker, and Brian's hand hasn't been caught on camera coming out of the flower bed. Prove me wrong. Prove me wrong. You know, if you truly believe it, that's fine, but please do consider all of the alternatives and what is more likely. That's all I'm saying, really. But there is an interesting development, and that has been confirmed from the Laundrie's lawyer, that Chris Laundrie, Brian's dad, has been asked to take part in a search at the Carlton Reserve. Interesting. Why is this after like several weeks? You've got to speculate on why they've asked him. That he was meant to do it yesterday, but they wanted to check something else out. So whether he's going today or another day, I don't know, but he's apparently going to do this sometime. There was a big police presence at the Carlton Reserve yesterday, so there was much to do in the news about this. There's lots of vehicles there, whereas in the previous days they'd pretty much stopped searching there. There was some vehicles, but there wasn't a big police presence or anything. But they've done this before. They've done that before, like had a few days kind of really low, like, you know, low visibility, and then come back with more vehicles. They're probably just, I don't know, reorganising, I guess. Yeah, why have they asked Chris Laundrie? So I'm sure he's not a search expert, and it's not usual that they'd ask a parent to go and search, and it's certainly not so he can go and identify a body. I know some people have said that. It's not that. If they'd found Brian's body, they'd do all the forensic stuff at scene, and then they'd remove the body and then ask for an identification. They wouldn't want a parent there on scene to look at a dead body. They really wouldn't. So it's not that. I'm wondering whether it's some kind of strategy to separate Roberta and Chris, or to see what Chris will say, you know, in a conversational manner. Just see if he'll relax and say something that will help them. Maybe he'll take them to Brian's favourite spots, but how would he know Brian's favourite spots? Unless he went hiking with him all the time. I don't know. It's an interesting development, so let's see how that pans out. But that's all I've got for you today. Leave your comments and questions and so on in the comment section below. Please do keep it classy. I know the vast majority of you do, so thank you for that. It's goodbye from me. It's goodbye from Miss Tillington and Miss Cassie Springer. I can hear Miss Tillington's just gone in the creek over where the bridge is. And there's Miss Cassie Springer. Very, very dark this morning. Look at it. Bye, guys.